Every single year since the 1970s, Hollywood has taken a massive sci-fi gamble and lost. Sometimes it was tens of millions, sometimes it was hundreds of millions, and sometimes the failure was so catastrophic it destroyed entire studios forever. What you're about to see is not just a list. This is a 55-year timeline of the most expensive, most embarrassing, and most shocking sci-fi disasters ever put on screen. And here's the thing. Some of these movies deserved better. Some of them deserved exactly what they got. So if you think you know which film sits at number 1, I promise you, the real story is worse than you think. Number 55. THX 1138, 1971.
A visual record is being taken and filed with the Department of Biological...
THX 1138 was Lucas's feature debut, a cold, sterile dystopian nightmare about a future where humans are drugged into obedience and emotions are outlawed. The budget was exactly $777,777. Not a round number, not a studio estimate. That was the exact figure. Behind the scenes, Lucas filmed in the unfinished tunnels of the San Francisco Bay Area rapid transit system because the production literally could not afford to build sets. The entire film was shot with handheld cameras, natural lighting, and no traditional score. Lalo Schifrin provided an eerie electronic soundscape instead of a conventional soundtrack. When test screenings arrived, studio executives were so confused by the final cut that they pulled it from theaters almost immediately. In its opening week, THX 1138 played in just 3 theaters across the entire country. 3. The first run gross was $945,000. Warner Brothers was so furious about the loss that they demanded American Zoetrope repay the entire production loan, nearly bankrupting Coppola's company before it ever got off the ground. Number 54. Zardoz, 1974.
For Intervortex Barter and Exchange, year 2293.
3 years after James Bond made him the most famous actor alive, Sean Connery showed up on screen wearing a red loincloth, thigh-high leather boots, bandoliers of ammunition, and a braided ponytail. No suit, no martini, no charm. Just a nearly naked former 007 running around a post-apocalyptic wasteland controlled by a giant floating stonehead that screamed the words, "The gun is good," at crowds of brainwashed followers. That was Zardoz. The production budget was $1.57 million. And here's the thing, Connery took the role in this film specifically because he wanted to destroy the Bond image that had trapped him for over a decade. He agreed to work for a significantly reduced salary just to get the part. Boorman shot the film almost entirely on location in Ireland, using practical effects, elaborate costumes, and surreal set designs that looked like a fever dream painted by a philosophy professor. The floating head alone became one of the most bizarre images in 1970s cinema. Despite all these, Zardoz opened and earned roughly $1.8 million. It's widely considered a commercial disaster given the marketing and distribution costs Fox had invested. Number 53. The Stepford Wives, 1975.
To the future!
Columbia Pictures thought it had a prestige property on its hands. The source was Ira Levin's best-selling novel. The man adapting it was William Goldman, and the premise was pure, unsettling genius. A woman moves to a picture-perfect Connecticut suburb and slowly realizes the impossibly cheerful, endlessly submissive housewives around her are being replaced, one by one, with obedient robotic duplicates built by their own husbands. On paper, it was sharp, timely satire aimed straight at the anxieties of the women's liberation era. And then the production began tearing itself apart from the inside. Behind the scenes, Goldman and director Brian Forbes went to war over the single most important creative decision in the entire film. Goldman wanted the replacement wives to be exaggerated, glamorous sex doll fantasies, the ultimate chauvinist dream made flesh. Forbes instead cast his own wife, Nanette Newman, in a key role and dressed the robotic wives in modest, long-gown dresses, softening the very caricature that gave the story its bite. Goldman was furious, later making clear how badly he felt those choices blunted the satire's edge. When The Stepford Wives finally opened, it limped to roughly $4 million, with reviews that treated it as a cold, slow, self-important curiosity. Number 52. Logan's Run, 1976. Logan's Run was set in a sealed utopian city where every citizen lives a life of pure pleasure until the age of 30. The concept was based on a 1967 novel by William F. Nolan and George Clayton Johnson. the production budget escalated to $9 million. The centerpiece of that spending was an elaborate domed city sequence requiring extensive practical set construction, miniature work, and effects that pushed the limits of what the industry could do without computer assistance. Behind the scenes, several sequences were edited or shortened during post-production. Entire confrontation scenes between characters were removed, reducing the film's dramatic clarity and leaving certain plot threads feeling truncated. Then Star Wars opened in May 1977 and made Logan's Run look like a relic overnight. Everything about the film, its miniature sets, its softly lit interiors, its leisurely pacing, suddenly felt quaint compared to the raw energy Lucas unleashed. Logan's Run went from being the future of sci-fi to a time capsule of everything audiences were about to leave behind. In its first 5 days in theaters, the film grossed just $2.5 million. Number 51, Damnation Alley, 1977.
Just sits in that control room every day and drinks.
Damnation Alley had everything the studio thought audiences wanted. Military heroes, mutant creatures, giant armored vehicles rolling through a devastated landscape. Jan Michael Vincent and George Peppard starred as the last survivors of a military base who drive across the irradiated remains of the country in a massive 12-wheeled transport called the Landmaster. But here's the thing. Only one Landmaster vehicle was actually built for the film, at a cost of $300,000 in 1976 dollars, despite the film depicting 2 of them. Behind the scenes, filmmakers used camera angles and editing to disguise the fact that there was only ever one prop. After production, some scenes were later excised to make way for more shots of the expensive Landmaster, in an attempt to give the film a more action-driven feel closer to Star Wars. And that editing destroyed whatever character development the original cut had attempted to build. Damnation Alley finally limped into theaters and earned approximately $4 million domestically. Number 50, The Black Hole, 1979.
In the command tower, the power center.
Robots, Mr. Pizer.
2 years after Star Wars turned science fiction into the most profitable genre on Earth, the Walt Disney Company decided it was time to stop making gentle family adventures and build something darker, stranger, and far more ambitious than anything the studio had ever attempted. The Black Hole was the result. It was also the first Disney film to receive a PG rating and the first to feature actual profanity in its dialogue. The final production budget reached $20 million. On top of that, Disney set aside another $6 million specifically for marketing, bringing the total financial exposure past $26 million. Behind the scenes, the robot designs alone consumed a significant portion of the budget. The production used some of the most advanced matte painting and miniature work available in 1979, including what was at the time the longest computer-generated imagery sequence ever produced for a motion picture. The Black Hole grossed approximately $35 million domestically. On paper, that might appear sustainable, but once the $6 million marketing spend was included, the numbers turned grim. Number 49, Saturn III, 1980. Kirk Douglas was 63 years old when he agreed to appear shirtless for most of a sci-fi horror movie set on a remote space station orbiting Saturn. That decision alone tells you everything about the strange energy behind Saturn III. The budget landed around $10 million. And here's the thing. After shooting, Harvey Keitel's entire vocal performance was dubbed over by another actor in post-production because the studio felt his thick New York accent did not fit a futuristic setting. Keitel was reportedly furious when he discovered the replacement. Farrah Fawcett later described the production as chaotic and uncomfortable, with constant script rewrites happening between takes. The robot Hector, designed to be terrifyingly imposing on screen, required elaborate practical construction and puppetry that pushed the effects budget well beyond initial estimates. When Saturn III finally opened, it grossed approximately $9 million, a clean loss before marketing and distribution costs were even calculated. Number 48, Battle Beyond the Stars, 1980. Battle Beyond the Stars was literally 7 samurai in outer space. The budget was approximately $2 million, and the reason it looked that good was the crew. James Cameron was hired as the art director and ended up building miniatures, designing spaceships, and essentially creating the film's entire visual identity on a shoestring budget. Cameron later said the experience taught him more about practical filmmaking than any film school ever could. The cast included Richard Thomas, George Peppard, Robert Vaughn, and John Saxon. On set, Sybil Danning was dressed in a costume so minimal it became the film's most talked-about visual element. After shooting, Corman recycled the spaceship models and effects footage from Battle Beyond the Stars in at least 7 other productions over the following years, squeezing every dollar of value from the original investment. The film grossed roughly $11 million at the box office, which technically made it profitable by Corman standards, but the theatrical returns were considered disappointing relative to the aggressive marketing push New World Pictures gave it. Number 47, Outland, 1981. Sean Connery wanted to prove he was more than James Bond. After Zardoz in 1974 failed to shake the 007 shadow, Connery tried once more with Outland, a gritty science fiction thriller set on a mining colony orbiting Jupiter's moon Io. The concept was essentially high noon in space. Director Peter Hyams wrote and directed the film with a reported budget of $16 million. The production design was deliberately industrial, rejecting the sleek futurism of Star Wars in favor of dirty corridors. The practical sets were built at Pinewood Studios in England and were considered some of the most detailed and realistic space station interiors constructed for any film up to that point. Filming was technically demanding, with Hyams insisting on in-camera effects wherever possible to maintain a sense of gritty authenticity. When Outland opened, it grossed approximately $17.4 million domestically, a result that left the studio with a net loss once marketing and distribution costs were calculated. Number 46, The Thing, 1982. In the summer of 1982, audiences had a choice. They could watch a lovable alien who befriends a lonely child and flies a bicycle across the moon, or they could watch a shape-shifting extraterrestrial parasite rip through the bodies of isolated men in Antarctica. Then John Carpenter's The Thing opened 2 weeks later and walked straight into a buzzsaw. Behind the scenes, Kurt Russell starred as MacReady, a helicopter pilot stationed at a remote Antarctic research base where a parasitic alien organism begins absorbing and perfectly imitating every living thing it touches. Rob Bottin, only 22 years old at the time, spent over a year creating the practical creature effects, working so relentlessly that he was hospitalized for exhaustion after production wrapped. His work remains some of the most disturbing and technically accomplished practical effects in cinema history. The chest defibrillator scene, the blood test sequence, the kennel transformation. Each one pushed the boundaries of what audiences had ever seen on screen. The Thing opened and grossed $19.6 million domestically. Number 45, Krull, 1983. Krull was designed to capitalize on every trend dominating early 1980s cinema simultaneously. The budget was $47 million. The cast featured Ken Marshall as Prince Colwyn and Lisette Anthony as Princess Lissa, with Anthony's entire vocal performance dubbed over by another actress in post-production. During production, the glaive was designed as a practical prop with multiple versions built for different shooting requirements. The creature effects for the beast and its army of slayers required extensive prosthetic and animatronic work that consumed months of production time. When Krull opened in July 1983, it grossed only $16.9 million domestically. Number 44, Dune, 1984. Frank Herbert's Dune had been a publishing phenomenon since 1965. Multiple filmmakers had tried and failed to bring it to the screen. Producer Dino De Laurentiis eventually secured the rights and hired Lynch, believing the young director's surreal visual style would be perfect for Herbert's hallucinatory universe. The budget ballooned to $40 million. During production, the costume department created more than 3,000 individual costumes. Carlo Rambaldi built the enormous sandworm models that became the film's most iconic visual element. Lynch initially delivered a cut running over 4 hours. Universal demanded he reduce it to approximately 2 hours and 17 minutes. Entire subplots were gutted. Character motivations disappeared. The studio added opening narration and internal monologues to explain plot points that no longer made sense after the edits. Lynch fought against every cut but ultimately lost control of the final product. When Dune opened, it earned $30.9 million worldwide. Roger Ebert called it a real mess. Number 43, Enemy Mine, 1985. Wolfgang Petersen had just directed one of the most acclaimed war films of the 20th century. Das Boot earned 6 Academy Award nominations and turned Petersen into one of the most sought-after directors in Hollywood. Studios offered him everything. Then he chose Enemy Mine. 20th Century Fox greenlit the project with a budget of approximately $40 million. Behind the scenes, the makeup and creature effects were designed by Chris Walas. Production originally began under director Richard Loncraine, who shot footage on location in Iceland. But the Icelandic footage was deemed unusable due to weather complications and creative differences, and Longcrane was replaced by Peterson. The volcanic planet sets were constructed on massive sound stages, with practical lava effects and atmospheric smoke creating conditions so intense that crew members occasionally required medical attention. Gossett later described the shoot as one of the most physically demanding experiences of his career. When Enemy Mine opened, it was crushed by competition. The film grossed only $12.3 million domestically. Number 42. Howard the Duck, 1986. Howard the Duck began as a cult favorite comic created by Steve Gerber in the 1970s. Universal Pictures acquired the rights and attached Lucas as executive producer with a budget of $37 million. Behind the scenes, the production itself required a team of actors and puppeteers to bring Howard to life. Multiple performers wore the duck suit during filming. The suit itself cost hundreds of thousands of dollars and was engineered with animatronic facial features that required constant technical adjustment between takes. The creature effects for the Dark Overlord's final form cost millions and required extensive stop-motion and animatronic work from ILM. When Howard the Duck opened, it grossed only $16.2 million domestically. The failure was so brutal that it reportedly contributed to Lucas selling the computer graphics division of Lucasfilm. Number 41. Solar Babies, 1986. Somewhere inside a studio conference room in the mid-1980s, an executive heard the pitch, "Post-apocalyptic roller skating orphans find a glowing alien orb," and approved a $25 million budget. That sentence alone explains everything that went wrong with Solar Babies. The story followed a group of teenagers living in a dystopian desert orphanage controlled by a totalitarian regime that hoards the planet's remaining water supply. The cast was packed with young actors on the verge of careers that would take very different trajectories. Jason Patric, Jamie Gertz, Peter DeLuise, and Lucas Haas all appeared. But here's the thing. During production, the visual team encountered constant logistical problems. Roller skating sequences required extensive rehearsal and specialized camera rigs that added weeks to the schedule. The practical effects for the alien sphere and the water creation sequences demanded multiple passes of optical compositing that pushed post-production well beyond its original timeline. The costumes combined leather and futuristic athletic gear that looked increasingly dated even before the film reached theaters. When Solar Babies opened, it was ignored almost universally. The film grossed approximately $1.5 million domestically. Number 40. Masters of the Universe, 1987. Masters of the Universe was supposed to be Canon's biggest production ever. Dolph Lundgren was cast as He-Man. Frank Langella took the role of Skeletor and attacked it with such intense theatrical commitment that his performance remains the single most praised element of the entire production. The original script was set entirely on the planet Eternia, faithfully adapting the cartoon's mythology, but Canon could not afford to build Eternia. The budget was already strained before cameras rolled, and the company was hemorrhaging money from a string of expensive flops. So the script was rewritten to transport He-Man and his allies to modern-day Earth, where most of the action could be filmed on existing locations and standing sets. At the end, production ran into constant financial problems. In fact, filming literally stopped at one point because Canon ran out of money. When Masters of the Universe finally opened, it earned just $17 million worldwide against its $22 million budget. Number 39. Slipstream, 1989. On paper, Slipstream seemed like a guaranteed box office success. The elements were legitimately impressive. This was not a low-ambition production. This was a film that genuinely believed it had something to say. During production, Gary Kurtz was in the middle of a devastating divorce case that he lost, resulting in the loss of all his profits from the Star Wars films, which had been used to help finance Slipstream. The money problems bled directly into the final product, limiting what could be achieved on screen. Behind the scenes, the production designer worked with genuine commitment to create a world where permanent catastrophic winds had reshaped civilization, leaving only aircraft travel viable. The aerial photography across European locations was striking. Despite all these, when Slipstream opened, it earned less than $1 million at the worldwide box office. Number 38. Robot Jocks, 1990. Stuart Gordon made Robot Jocks in 1986, attempting to exploit the mid-1980s craze for Transformers toys that had been driven by the Transformers and Robotech animated series. The timing was logical. Giant robots were a cultural phenomenon. The production budget was $10 million. The robot effects combined full-scale cockpit sets with stop-motion animation supervised by David Allen. Each robot fight required weeks of painstaking animation work. But here's the thing, the production itself was plagued by financial problems from the very beginning. Empire International Pictures collapsed financially during production, forcing the completed film to sit on a shelf for nearly 2 years before it finally received a limited theatrical release in 1990. By the time audiences could actually see it, the cultural moment had passed. Robot Jox grossed approximately $1.3 million domestically, a devastating return that barely registered against its production budget. Number 37, The Rocketeer, 1991. The Rocketeer was based on Dave Stevens' beloved independent comic book about a young pilot in 1938 Los Angeles who discovers a prototype jetpack hidden inside his biplane and becomes a masked flying hero fighting Nazi spies. The comic had a devoted following and a retro pulp visual style that seemed perfect for the kind of swashbuckling adventure audiences loved in the late 1980s and early 1990s. On set, Jennifer Connelly played Jenny, a role that required period-accurate costumes and styling that consumed a significant wardrobe budget. The jetpack seen on screen was a practical prop built in multiple versions for different shooting requirements. ILM handled the visual effects, creating the flying sequences with a combination of miniatures, matte paintings, and early digital compositing. The film's period production design was meticulous. Everything about the production screamed quality. When The Rocketeer opened, it earned approximately $46.7 million domestically against its $35 million budget. On paper, that looks like a modest profit. In reality, Disney considered the film a significant financial disappointment. Number 36, Freejack, 1992. Freejack was based on Robert Sheckley's 1959 novel Immortality, Inc., which imagined a future where the ultra-wealthy extend their lives by snatching bodies from the past at the exact moment of death and transplanting their consciousness into the stolen flesh. The film updated the premise to 1992 sensibilities. The budget reportedly reached $55 million. During production, director Jeff Murphy was given a Hollywood-scale production far beyond anything he had previously handled. The cyberpunk production design attempted to create a grimy, stratified future New York where corporate towers gleamed above decaying streets. Jagger's involvement generated enormous tabloid interest, as it was one of the rock legend's rare leading film roles. When Freejack opened, the film grossed approximately $17 million worldwide. The timing was also unfortunate. Number 35, Super Mario Bros., 1993. Nintendo's Super Mario Bros. Was the most recognizable video game franchise on the planet in the early 1990s. The game had sold tens of millions of copies. The characters were globally iconic. Studios fought for the film rights, and the project eventually landed at Hollywood Pictures, a Disney subsidiary, with a budget of $48 million. And here's the thing, the original script was a lighter, more fantastical adventure faithful to the game's colorful aesthetic. Then husband and wife directing team Rocky Morton and Annabelle Jankel were hired, and everything changed. Morton and Jankel envisioned a dark, gritty, cyberpunk version of the Mushroom Kingdom set in a parallel dimension where dinosaurs evolved into humanoids. The cheerful world of the games was replaced with a dystopian cityscape. The production ran over schedule and over budget repeatedly. Super Mario Bros. Opened and grossed only $20.9 million domestically against its $48 million budget. Nintendo was so unhappy with the result that they refused to license major film adaptations for years. Number 34, Last Action Hero, 1993. Arnold Schwarzenegger was untouchable. By 1993, Arnold was the biggest action star on the planet, and Columbia Pictures believed he could sell absolutely anything. So they gave him an $85 million meta-action comedy about a kid who uses a magic movie ticket to enter the fictional world of his favorite action hero. On paper, the concept was clever. In reality, the execution was a total chaos. The behind-the-scenes action sequences included a rooftop explosion, a mansion assault, and an elaborate chase through both the fictional movie world and real New York City. ILM provided visual effects for the reality-bending transitions between worlds. The marketing campaign was one of the most aggressive in Columbia's history. The studio paid an estimated $500,000 to place the Last Action Hero logo on an actual NASA rocket. In fact, Arnold attended the premiere in a Humvee convoy. Everything was designed to signal event-level spectacle. Then, Last Action Hero opened and earned just $15.3 million. The loss was devastating. Number 33, Judge Dredd, 1995. In the original 2000 AD comic books, Judge Dredd never removes his helmet, ever. His face is permanently hidden behind a visor. His identity is the law itself, not the man underneath. That faceless authority is the entire point of the character. But when Sylvester Stallone was cast as Dredd in a $90 million Hollywood adaptation, the helmet came off within the first 15 minutes and stayed off for most of the film. Stallone reportedly insisted on showing his face, arguing that audiences paid to see a star, not a mask. That single creative decision alienated the comic's devoted fanbase before the plot even had a chance to win them over. Behind the scenes, the set design was genuinely impressive, drawing heavily from the comic's iconic visual style. The Lawgiver pistol, Dredd's signature weapon, was designed as a practical prop with multiple firing modes that required different physical builds for each function. The costumes, particularly the judge uniforms, were elaborate and expensive, requiring custom fabrication for every principal and background performer. When Judge Dredd opened in June 1995, the film grossed approximately $113 million worldwide. Number 32. Waterworld, 1995. Prior to James Cameron's Titanic breaking the record 2 years later, Waterworld was the most expensive movie ever made at the time of its production, costing an unprecedented $175 million. The press called it fish tar. They called it Kevin's Gate. They compared it to Heaven's Gate, the 1980 Western that had nearly destroyed United Artists. Behind the scenes, the primary set was a massive floating atoll constructed in the open ocean off the coast of Hawaii. The structure cost millions to build, requiring extensive and expensive reconstruction. In fact, Costner nearly drowned during a stunt sequence when he was tied to the mast of a trimaran during rough seas. Stunt coordination on open water was logistically nightmarish, with seasickness affecting cast and crew constantly. When Waterworld opened, it grossed just $88 million domestically. Number 31. Barbed Wire, 1996. In 1996, Anderson was at the peak of her Baywatch celebrity. Gramercy Pictures believed that celebrity alone could launch a sci-fi action franchise, so they adapted a Dark Horse comic book about a nightclub owner and bounty hunter navigating a second American Civil War in the year 2017. The budget was approximately $9 million. The film leaned heavily into stylized action, leather costumes, and provocative imagery designed to maximize Anderson's sex appeal as a selling point. The production shot quickly, relying on practical sets and modest special effects to create the dystopian setting. Anderson performed many of her own action sequences, including fight choreography and motorcycle stunts that required physical training she had not previously undertaken. The opening credit sequence, featuring Anderson on a swing in the rain, became the most talked about moment of the film for reasons that had nothing to do with storytelling. When Barbed Wire opened in May 1996, it was annihilated by critics. The film grossed approximately $3.8 million domestically. Number 30. Starship Troopers, 1997. Starship Troopers was adapted from Robert A. Heinlein's 1959 novel. The film follows a group of beautiful, blank-eyed young soldiers who volunteer for a war against alien bugs on distant planets. Behind the scenes, Verhoeven wanted his soldiers to look like recruitment poster models, gorgeous and empty, cheerfully marching towards slaughter. Phil Tippett supervised the creature effects for the alien bugs, creating some of the most complex CGI and practical hybrid creatures of the late 1990s. The bug designs required months of development. The tanker bug alone cost over $1 million to construct as a full-scale animatronic model. The battle sequences were filmed with deliberate visual callbacks to World War II propaganda footage, a reference that most contemporary viewers missed entirely. The violence was extreme and intentional. When the film opened, it grossed a financial disappointment. Number 29. Soldier, 1998. Soldier was written by David Webb Peoples and was intended to exist within the same fictional universe. The practical sets were massive, constructed at several sound stages with detailed dystopian environments that required weeks of construction. During production, the costume department created militaristic uniforms for the soldiers and cobbled together survivor clothing for the civilians, establishing a visual contrast between the machine-like military and the organic human community. But here's the main problem. During marketing, Warner Brothers tried positioning Soldier as a straightforward action blockbuster, but trailers struggled to convey the film's emotional depth. When Soldier opened, the film grossed approximately $14.6 million worldwide against its $60 million budget, one of the worst returns of the year. Number 28. Supernova, 2000. Supernova was a troubled sci-fi thriller that went through at least 5 incarnations with different directors. The production budget was approximately $90 million. Behind the scenes, director Hill clashed with the studio over the film's tone and pacing. MGM wanted a faster, more commercially accessible thriller. Hill wanted something darker and more psychologically complex. The tension became so severe that Hill was eventually removed from the project. Jack Shoulder was then brought in to direct additional scenes and reshoots. Then, in an almost unbelievable twist, Francis Ford Coppola was hired to supervise the final edit. Coppola worked without credit, shaping the cut as best he could from material that had been pulled in 3 different creative directions. The visual effects, which included elaborate deep space environments and a climactic supernova sequence, consumed a significant portion of the budget. When Supernova finally opened, it grossed just $14.8 million worldwide. Number 27. Battlefield Earth, 2000. Battlefield Earth was adapted from Hubbard's 1982 novel about the year 3000, when humanity has been enslaved for a millennium by a race of towering alien conquerors called Cyclos. The budget was approximately $103 million. On set, director Roger Christian shot the entire film using extreme Dutch angles, tilting the camera diagonally in nearly every single frame. The choice was intended to create visual unease, but instead made audiences physically uncomfortable and critics openly hostile. The production shot primarily in Montreal, using practical sets and CGI environments that critics described as looking cheap despite the massive budget. The Cyclo costumes alone cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, with multiple backup suits required for the principal alien characters. When Battlefield Earth opened in May 2000, the critical response was apocalyptic. Roger Ebert called it something historic, a film that for decades to come will be the punchline of jokes. The film grossed only $29.7 million worldwide. Number 26. Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within, 2001.
Inside the crater.
Yes, exactly. And how do we do that?
Sakaguchi was the creator of the Final Fantasy video game franchise. By the late 1990s, Square, the company behind the games, had generated billions in revenue and built a reputation for pushing the boundaries of digital storytelling. Sakaguchi believed the next step was obvious: create a fully photorealistic computer-animated feature film using characters so lifelike that audiences would forget they were watching animation. The result was Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within, produced with a total production budget of approximately $137 million. Behind the scenes, the film required over 200 animators and technicians working for 4 years to render every frame. The production team studied human movement, skin texture, and light behavior obsessively, pushing rendering technology years beyond what any other studio had achieved. But here's the thing: the film plot had almost nothing to do with the Final Fantasy games. Sakaguchi deliberately distanced the film from the games, wanting to prove that the technology could tell any story, not just familiar ones. The marketing campaign struggled with this disconnect. The Spirits Within grossed approximately $85 million worldwide. Square Pictures, the studio built specifically for the film, shut down after. Number 25. The Adventures of Pluto Nash, 2002.
I got the best party in town 7 nights a week right here. Why do I want to sell this?
The Adventures of Pluto Nash starred Eddie Murphy as the owner of a nightclub on the moon in the year 2087, who battles the lunar mafia to protect his business. The concept was developed in the late 1990s during a period when Murphy was still one of the most bankable stars in the industry. The total budget reached $100 million. Behind the scenes, the production built elaborate lunar city sets, including Murphy's nightclub, moonscape exteriors, and chase sequence environments that combined practical construction with CGI enhancement. The costume design created a futuristic civilian and criminal wardrobe that attempted to blend comedy aesthetics with sci-fi world-building. Filming wrapped in 2000, but Warner Brothers executives screened the finished product and reportedly knew immediately that they had a problem. When The Adventures of Pluto Nash was finally premiered, it earned $4.4 million domestically on its opening weekend. Number 24. Treasure Planet, 2002.
With abnormally thin wrists. Excuse me.
Treasure Planet was the passion project of directors Ron Clements and John Musker. They first pitched the concept in 1985, Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island, but set in outer space with solar-powered sailing ships, alien ports, and a cyborg Long John Silver. Disney rejected the pitch. Clements and Musker kept pushing. For nearly 2 decades, they brought the idea back again and again, refining the concept with each attempt. Disney finally greenlit the project in the late 1990s with a budget of approximately $140 million. Behind the scenes, the animation combined hand-drawn character work with CGI environments, a hybrid technique called deep canvas that created a sense of 3-dimensional depth within 2-dimensional frames. The result was visually breathtaking. Spaceships with solar sails gliding through nebulae, alien marketplaces teeming with handcrafted creatures, a black hole sequence that pushed the rendering technology to its absolute limit. At the end, none of those mattered. Treasure Planet opened and earned $38 million domestically. Number 23, The Core, 2003.
Let's go.
One physicist speculated that audiences stayed away from The Core because they could smell that the science was garbage. He was probably right. The film imagined a team of scientists drilling to the center of the Earth to restart the planet's rotating molten core using nuclear explosions. The budget was approximately $60 million, and Paramount positioned the film as a mid-tier disaster spectacle designed to fill the gap between smaller genre releases and tentpole blockbusters. Behind the scenes, the production built elaborate interior sets for the drilling vessel Virgil, a modular ship designed to withstand impossible heat and pressure as it burrows through the planet's layers. Each section of the ship was constructed as a separate practical set that could be destroyed individually as the crew lost compartments during their descent. When The Core opened, the film grossed approximately $74 million worldwide. Number 22, The Chronicles of Riddick, 2004. Pitch Black cost $23 million and earned $53 million worldwide. Seeing these numbers, Universal immediately greenlit a sequel with a budget of $105 million, with director David Twohy transforming the intimate horror franchise into an epic space opera spanning multiple planets, ancient prophecies, and a galaxy-conquering army called the Necromongers. The tonal shift was seismic. Riddick went from hunted fugitive to chosen warrior destined to overthrow an empire. Behind the scenes, the production designed entire civilizations from scratch, building the Necromonger command ship interiors as massive practical sets with Gothic architectural flourishes that blended medieval cathedral aesthetics with alien technology. Costume designer Alan Cameron created elaborate armored suits for the Necromonger warriors that cost thousands of dollars per unit. The film's visual palette was deliberately darker and more textured than typical blockbuster fare, with each planet featuring its own distinct color scheme and environmental design. When The Chronicles of Riddick opened, it grossed just $115 million worldwide, and the commodification of human life. Then the second half became a full-throttle Michael Bay action movie with car chases, explosions, and a freeway sequence involving train wheels that cost millions to choreograph. The budget reached $126 million. Behind the scenes, the production shot at actual industrial locations and purpose-built sets, creating a sterile Apple Store aesthetic for the cloning facility that contrasted sharply with the grimy real world outside. Bay's team staged an elaborate freeway chase in downtown Los Angeles that shut down several blocks and involved hundreds of extras and precision stunt driving. The production also faced a plagiarism lawsuit from the makers of parts. The case was eventually settled out of court for an undisclosed amount. When the island opened, it grossed approximately $162 million worldwide. Number 20, Ultraviolet, 2006. Mila Jovovich had just made 2 very successful Resident Evil films for Screen Gems. Writer-director Kurt Wimmer had demonstrated he could handle action on a budget with the cult hit Equilibrium. Screen Gems fully financed the film. On paper, that Ultraviolet's combination of a bankable action star, a proven genre director, and a Shanghai production base built around elaborate action sequences was the kind of proposition that looked rock solid on a spreadsheet. Then it went to post-production, and everything went upside down. And here's the thing. The original vision was significantly more complex than what reached theaters. Wimmer delivered a cut that reportedly ran well over 2 hours, expanding the world-building and character motivations into a fuller narrative. The studio demanded extensive cuts, reducing the theatrical version to just 87 minutes. Wimmer later said the editing destroyed the coherence of the film, leaving audiences with disconnected action sequences and minimal character development. The visual effects were ambitious but poorly received. Ultraviolet grossed just $31 million worldwide against its $30 million budget. Number 19. Sunshine, 2007. Sunshine was a cerebral, visually stunning sci-fi thriller set 50 years in the future. Fox Searchlight greenlit the project with a budget of approximately $40 million. The cast was deliberately assembled as an international ensemble representing a unified global effort. Each actor was paid modestly by blockbuster standards, with the budget prioritized toward visual effects and production design. Behind the scenes, the interior of the Icarus II was constructed as a series of interconnected practical sets at 3 Mills Studios in London, designed so actors could walk continuously through the ship without breaking the spatial logic. The sunlight effects were created using an array of powerful stage lights surrounding the sets, giving actors real brightness to react to rather than imagining it against green screens. The visual effects team created the sun itself as a constantly churning digital environment, building layers of solar activity that remain some of the most beautiful astronomical imagery ever rendered for film. Despite all these, Sunshine opened and grossed just $32 million worldwide. Number 18. Speed Racer, 2008. Warner Brothers spent $80 million on marketing Speed Racer alone, with 53 promotional partners and over 5,000 licensed products, taco shells, Betty Crocker cookie mix, and Puma sneakers all bearing the film's branding. And here's the thing. Speed Racer was shot entirely against green screen at Babelsberg Studios in Potsdam, Germany, over 60 days. There were 0 physical locations. During production, visual effects designer John Gaeta was brought in to help conceive the live-action adaptation. The cast included John Goodman, Susan Sarandon, Christina Ricci, and Emile Hirsch in the lead. Every component was premium. On set, the racing sequences were designed to operate at speeds and angles that would be physically impossible in reality, treating the screen like a canvas rather than a window. When Speed Racer opened, it grossed approximately $93.9 million worldwide. Number 17. Surrogates, 2009. Surrogates was based on a graphic novel by Robert Venditti and Brett Weldelli. The concept was legitimately compelling. Set in a future where people live physically isolated in their homes while operating idealized robotic versions of themselves in public. Behind the scenes, the production design created 2 distinct visual worlds. The surrogate-populated streets were clean, bright, and eerily perfect. The human reservation zones were messy, weathered, and raw. The contrast was designed to make audiences question which world felt more real. Willis wore prosthetic makeup and a synthetic wig in his surrogate scenes, creating an uncanny smoothness that deliberately unsettled viewers who recognized the real Willis underneath. When Surrogates opened in September 2009, it was immediately overshadowed. Number 16. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, 2010. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World was adapted from Brian Lee O'Malley's beloved graphic novel series. Universal Pictures greenlit the project with a budget of approximately $60 million, trusting director Wright to deliver a commercial comedy with mainstream appeal. But here's the thing. Wright had a different vision. He wanted to create a film that felt like playing a video game, reading a comic book, and watching a romantic comedy simultaneously. The result was the most visually inventive comedy in years. Behind the scenes, the fight choreography sequence was designed by stunt coordinator Brad Allen and required months of physical training for the actors. The editing rhythm matched video game logic, with combo counters, score displays, and extra life icons appearing on screen during fights. When Scott Pilgrim opened, it was immediately crushed. The film grossed approximately $47.6 million worldwide. Number 15. Mars Needs Moms, 2011. Mars Needs Moms was produced by Image Movers Digital, the performance capture studio founded by Robert Zemeckis. With a $150 million budget, the entire film was produced using performance capture technology, where actors wore motion sensor suits on a specialized stage, and their movements were translated into digital characters. On set, Seth Green was originally cast to perform Milo's movements and voice, but during post-production, the studio decided his adult voice did not match the child character, and replaced his vocal performance with 12-year-old actor Seth Dusky. Green retained the physical performance credit. In fact, the production required years of rendering and animation work at the Image Movers Digital facility. When Mars Needs Moms opened, it was an immediate catastrophe. The opening weekend domestic gross was just $6.9 million. Number 14. John Carter, 2012. John Carter was based on A Princess of Mars, written by Edgar Rice Burroughs in 1912, a full century before the film's release. The source material was the grandfather of modern science fiction, and Disney spent approximately $250 million in production costs, bringing it to the screen, with total expenses including marketing reportedly reaching $350 million. Behind the scenes, the visual effects required over 2,000 shots, creating the alien landscapes, creatures, and aerial battles of Barsoom from scratch. ILM handled the effects work, building digital environments that were technically extraordinary, but visually resembled other recent Desert Planet blockbusters, reducing the sense of originality audiences needed to feel. The marketing campaign became one of the most analyzed failures in Hollywood history. In fact, Disney had to drop "of Mars" from the original title, fearing that the word Mars would alienate female audiences based on the poor performance of Mars Needs Moms the previous year. The resulting title, simply John Carter, sounded like a legal drama rather than an interplanetary epic. When John Carter opened, it earned just $30.2 million domestically in its opening weekend. Number 13. After Earth, 2013. Will Smith was the safest bet in Hollywood. For 2 decades, his name on a poster was practically a guarantee. Independence Day, Men in Black, I, Robot, I Am Legend, Hancock. The man did not miss. Then he made After Earth, and everything changed. Throughout, the entire film rested on Jaden Smith, Will Smith's son's ability to carry extended solo sequences through dangerous terrain while conveying emotional growth convincing enough to sustain a blockbuster. Sony greenlit the project with a budget of approximately $130 million. The production filmed in locations across Costa Rica, Utah, and California, using practical wilderness environments supplemented by extensive CGI creature work and environmental effects. The future Earth was designed as a hostile ecosystem where every plant, insect, and predator had evolved specifically to destroy human intruders. A massive alien creature called the Ursa served as the film's primary antagonist. The creature design required elaborate digital animation that consumed months of post-production work. When After Earth opened, it grossed just $60.5 million domestically. Number 12. Transcendence, 2014. Transcendence starred Johnny Depp as Dr. Will Castor, a leading artificial intelligence researcher who is fatally poisoned by anti-technology extremists. The budget reached $100 million. The production shot in New Mexico, Los Angeles, and various practical locations that served as the expanding technological compound where Castor's digital consciousness begins physically reshaping the world around it. The visual effects depicted nanomachine reconstruction, digital consciousness visualization, and environmental terraforming sequences that required extensive post-production rendering. The screenplay by Jack Paglin explored themes that would become central to global conversations within years: artificial superintelligence, technological singularity, the ethics of consciousness preservation, and humanity's fear of being surpassed by its own creations. In 2014, these ideas felt abstract. Transcendence opened and grossed approximately $103 million worldwide. Number 11. Jupiter Ascending, 2015. Jupiter Ascending was the Wachowskis' most ambitious original creation since The Matrix. The budget was $179 million. Behind the scenes, the visual effects involved over 2,000 shots, depicting alien worlds, spacecraft battles, and genetic splicing laboratories with elaborate detail. The Wachowskis designed every alien species, costume, and environment from scratch, creating an original mythology so dense that audiences needed a guidebook to follow the political dynamics. The film was originally scheduled for a July 2014 release, but was delayed to February 2015 to allow additional time for visual effects completion. That delay moved it from a competitive summer slot to a traditionally weak winter release window, signaling internal concern at the studio level. When Jupiter Ascending finally opened, it grossed approximately $184 million worldwide. The total loss was estimated around $130 million. Number 10. Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets, 2017. Valerian was adapted from Valerian and Laureline, a French comic series created by Pierre Christine and Jean-Claude Mézières in 1967. Besson fell in love with the series as a child and dreamed of adapting it for decades, but the technology to realize the comic's impossibly detailed alien worlds did not exist until the 2000s. When Besson finally secured financing, he committed everything. The budget reached $177 million. The visual effects were staggering. Weta Digital handled the effects work alongside several other studios. Over 2,300 visual effects shots were produced. The opening sequence required actors to perform in real-world spaces while wearing VR headsets to interact with virtual alien vendors and environments simultaneously. Alpha, the city of 1,000 planets itself, was designed as a massive space station containing thousands of alien species living in interconnected biomes, each rendered with distinct atmospheric, architectural, and biological detail. The world building was genuinely awe-inspiring. Every frame contained more visual information than most films generate in entire acts. Despite all these, when Valerian opened, it was a total disappointment. Number 9. Blade Runner 2049, 2017. The original Blade Runner bombed in 1982. 35 years later, the sequel bombed again. The same franchise, the same fate, twice. The budget was approximately $150 million. The legendary cinematographer Roger Deakins shot the film, creating some of the most breathtaking images ever captured on digital cinema cameras. Every frame looked like a painting dissolving in rain. The orange Las Vegas sequences, the brutalist Los Angeles architecture, the snow-covered finale. Behind the scenes, the Wallace Corporation headquarters alone required a set so large that it became one of the biggest interior constructions in recent film history. Villeneuve insisted on practical effects wherever possible, using miniatures, atmospheric fog, and real water to create environments that felt tangibly real. The result was a film that felt genuinely handmade in an era of digital assembly lines. When Blade Runner 2049 opened, the film grossed approximately $259 million worldwide, a significant financial loss once the marketing spend was included. Number 8. Mortal Engines, 2018. Mortal Engines was adapted from Philip Reeve's 2001 young adult novel set thousands of years after a catastrophic war destroyed civilization. The budget was around $150 million. The cast was staggering. Behind the scenes, the moving cities were designed with extraordinary mechanical detail, each one a functioning ecosystem of gears, smokestacks, residential levels, and industrial machinery. London alone required over 65,000 individual digital components to animate. The opening chase sequence, in which London pursues and devours a small mining town, was one of the most technically complex action sequences ever produced. The world building was genuinely extraordinary. Every frame contained layers of mechanical and architectural detail that rewarded close attention. The problem was that nothing inside the world felt emotionally alive. When Mortal Engines opened, it was crushed by Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Aquaman, and Mary Poppins Returns. The film grossed approximately $83.6 million worldwide. Number 7. Terminator, Dark Fate, 2019. Dark Fate was the first Terminator film since 1991's Judgment Day that had series creator James Cameron involved and star Linda Hamilton returning as Sarah Connor. That reunion was the entire marketing proposition. The argument was simple. The sequels failed because they lacked Cameron. So they brought Cameron back. They brought Hamilton back. They set the film as a direct sequel to Judgment Day and erased everything else from the timeline. They invested $185 million, recruited Tim Miller of Deadpool to direct, and launched what they believed was a corrected franchise. The production machine was formidable. Tracking ahead of release pointed toward a $40 million domestic opening. Promotional materials included a hybrid trailer with NBA star Kawhi Leonard alongside Schwarzenegger and Hamilton that accumulated 10 million global views. Despite all these, Dark Fate opened to just $29 million domestically. Number 6. Moonfall, 2022. Moonfall was Roland Emmerich's 5th consecutive box office bomb and easily his biggest. The man who had made Independence Day one of the most profitable films of the 1990s had not had a genuine worldwide hit in over 2 decades. Each successive film had cost more and earned less. Moonfall was supposed to be the correction. Instead, it became the reckoning. The budget reached $140 million. And here's the thing. The moon, in the world of Moonfall, is a hollow alien construction housing an ancient artificial intelligence that has been orbiting Earth for billions of years. That reveal alone makes the film one of the most gloriously unhinged blockbusters of the decade. Behind the scenes, the visual effects depicted tidal waves consuming cities, gravity anomalies tearing apart landscapes, and lunar fragments bombarding the Earth's surface. The interior of the hollow moon was designed as a vast alien environment with its own atmosphere, lighting, and technological ecosystems. Moonfall opened with just $10 million domestically. Number 5. Chaos Walking, 2021. When it was first announced in 2011, Chaos Walking was touted as a possible successor to Twilight. The budget was well above $100 million. The initial production reportedly went smoothly enough, but when the studio screened early cuts, the results were considered deeply problematic. The noise effect on the screen was technically challenging and visually disorienting in extended sequences. The studio ordered massive reshoots that reportedly changed significant portions of the story, added new scenes, and restructured the narrative. The reshoots were so extensive that they essentially constituted a second production, adding tens of millions to the budget. The delay stretched across years as scheduling conflicts with Holland and Ridley's other franchise commitments made reassembling the cast extraordinarily difficult. By the time Chaos Walking finally opened in March 2021, the pandemic had fundamentally altered theatrical distribution. The film grossed approximately $26.8 million worldwide, one of the worst returns for a major studio release in recent memory. Number 4. Lightyear, 2022. Lightyear was a spin-off built around Buzz Lightyear, the iconic astronaut action figure from Toy Story. But in this case, the concept was unusual. Rather than following the toy version of Buzz that audiences had loved for nearly 3 decades, Lightyear was presented as the fictional movie that the character Andy from Toy Story would have watched as a kid. The production budget was above $200 million. The production was technically extraordinary. Pixar's animation team pushed their rendering capabilities to new heights, creating photorealistic lighting, atmospheric effects, and character designs that represented the studio's most visually sophisticated work. The space environments, alien creatures, and action sequences were stunning. Keke Palmer, Taika Waititi, Dale Soules, and James Brolin voiced supporting characters. When Lightyear opened, it earned just $51 million domestically. Number 3. The Creator, 2023. Gareth Edwards made a beautiful movie about artificial intelligence, warfare, and what it means to be human, and the world treated it like it did not exist. The Creator was an original sci-fi film in an era when Hollywood had all but abandoned original sci-fi filmmaking at the blockbuster level. Edwards developed the project independently. The result was a film that looked like it cost $300 million for an actual budget of $80 million. Industrial Light and Magic handled the effects work. John David Washington led the cast alongside Gemma Chan, Ken Watanabe, Sturgill Simpson, and Allison Janney. Filming made minimal use of green screen. The on-set visual effects supervisor described the shooting style as spontaneous, with sets and locations lit to appear unlit, allowing more breathing room than a traditional big-budget production. When the decision was made in post-production about which parts of a village sequence would be destroyed, the design team simply decided and composited the results. The Creator earned only $64.4 million worldwide in its initial theatrical run. Edwards gave his blunt reaction on a podcast. He said the film underperformed. Number 2. Borderlands, 2024. The Borderlands game franchise was beloved for its irreverent humor, cel-shaded visual style, cooperative gameplay, and anarchic tone that blended science fiction, western, and dark comedy into something genuinely unique. Hollywood had been attempting to adapt it for years. When Lionsgate finally greenlit a feature film, the studio assembled a cast designed to signal blockbuster legitimacy. The budget was $115 million. The original shoot took place in 2021 in Budapest, but the studio reportedly ordered extensive reshoots in 2023 under a different director who had directed Deadpool. The reshoots added significant cost and delayed the release. The visual effects attempted to translate the game's distinctive cel-shaded aesthetic into live action, creating a colorful, exaggerated world that resembled the source material in isolated moments. When Borderlands finally opened, the domestic gross was just $8.8 million. Number 1. Tron, Ares, 2025. Tron, Ares is the final chapter in one of the most quietly tragic franchise stories in Hollywood history. The original Tron opened in 1982 and pioneered computer-generated imagery at a time when the technology barely existed. It was visionary. It was groundbreaking. It was a box office disappointment. Then came Tron, Ares, 43 years after. The budget was $220 million. Behind the scenes, The production utilized cutting-edge visual effects, building on the neon-lit digital world aesthetic that had defined the series while expanding the story into the physical world for the first time. The grid sequences were designed with updated light cycle battles, disc combat arenas, and digital environments that pushed rendering technology to its current limits. The real-world sequences required a different visual approach, grounding the digital character of Ares in practical locations and human interactions. The costume department created Leto's signature grid suit as a practical garment with integrated lighting elements that required specialized engineering to function on camera. When Tron, Ares opened in October 2025, it debuted to approximately $33.5 million domestically, well below the already pessimistic projections of $50 million. And there you have it, 55 years of studios chasing the next big hit and crashing into the same wall every single time. Billions of dollars burned, careers destroyed, entire studios shuttered, and the wildest part is that some of the biggest bombs on this list eventually became the most beloved sci-fi films ever made. So if history teaches us anything, it's this. The next great sci-fi classic is probably bombing in a theater right now.